G'day everyone, Var here. I'm just going to get straight into it. Now, this is going to become a series called the Kingdom Seed. Now, as we start, we're going to just start a bit slowly and get a bit deeper in it. And it is based on a Sons of God doctrine, and I don't really want to explain that, but you probably will get the idea the further I go along. So, the scripture I want to work on today is in John 12, verse 24. As you can see it here. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat or seed falls into the ground and dies, it'll die alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. Now, there's a lot you can thresh out of that. There's a lot packed into that parable. And, as I've said before, Jesus shared a lot of parables to make his point. He, in order to make things plain. So, what is this allegory about? Well, Jesus preached a lot. He spent a significant amount of time preaching the kingdom, and that was his dominant ideology. That seed that he spread, the 3.5 years that he spent in ministry, he did two things. He prayed a heck of a lot, and he preached. Obviously, he healed a lot of people and he changed the world, but those were his two kind of things that he was doing a lot of. So, that is the seed. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the corn of wheat. There's another kind of parable around in that same context in Matthew 13, the parable of the sower. So as you can see here, there was a man that went out to sow seed. Some fell onto stony ground, some fell onto thorny ground, some fell onto ground with no depth. And so what that basically means today is some didn't want to listen to Jesus. Some didn't really have any stickability. Other had worldly worries. And a very minute few, mind you, stuck in. So this is a narrative that is entrenched in the Bible, but not only in the Bible, it's entrenched in society. Those types of people. And the narrative carries on here as we look how it looks at that seed fell into the ground. And it fell. And I kind of want to just have a look at that for a moment. You ever noticed that there have been you've had a dream, something that you've wanted to do, something that you've really wanted to do, something you've wanted to aim at, and it starts like a seed, doesn't it? It starts like a thought. Those that have those sorts of dreams, as big as they can be at times, will suffer rejection from it. It will feel like they're alone. See, Jesus was probably the loneliest man there's ever been. Like he was majorly rejected. Like if we look at what's happened in the last week, we've had Easter. Easter was at that time of Passover. A week before that, or a time before that, when Jesus entered in Jerusalem, they loved him. But when it came to Passover, they wanted him dead and they crucified him. But he stuck to his dream. There's been many people in the Bible, many flawed characters that have had dreams. If we look at Noah was, he became a drunkard. Joseph was a dreamer, but he was very arrogant. And David suffered with immorality. We look at examples in the world, in the history. Einstein. He was a failure before he began. He was a poor student. Abraham, apparently he lost 8 elections. And Colonel Sanders, the great KFC guy, he's rejected by 1,000 people, before he did what he did. So that's that kind of narrative and ideology I want to get to about the seed kind of being thrown out but falling to the ground. Those that have those dreams, those passions that they have, that seed of hope, will probably live in loneliness and obscurity and isolation in their dreams. But if you hold on to it, some things will happen. The next part of that scripture is that seed will fall on the ground and die. And we know that Jesus was talking about himself as well. Actually, predominantly, he was talking about himself. I'm going to die. And he had to die. He had to go if you believe in his call and what he was trying to do. And that was the true meaning of Easter. Now, if we get back to this other allegory of hope, there are times when we feel that our dreams are dead. Sometimes it's better to let it die, better to give up hope. And now it is even more apparent. There will be people feeling so lonely, so isolated, so wanting to give up on any hope. In fact, there's no hope at this time. What hope can you have in your business? What hope can you have in the future? We don't even know what's going to happen in the future. But I believe now is the time to hold on to that hope. Now is the time to keep walking strong with that hope. And the reason I believe that is because I follow examples of people that have done that in the past, particularly in the Bible. You know, there'd be many examples of that underdog narrative. You go back to these characters. Noah, you know, even though he fell in drunkenness, he was, as the Lord said, he walked before the Lord perfectly. Joseph was a great example. He dreamed. He was a dreamer, but his brothers tried to get rid of him, tried to murder him. But what happened? He saved the world. He knew he was meant to do something. David, even though he was flawed, he knew there was something in him, and he needed to do something. And he was the most powerful king in the Bible. If we look at these examples, these secular examples, Einstein, you know, even though he was a poor student, he invented the theory of relativity, quantum mechanics. There are many things that we have today because of this guy, a remarkably amazingly intelligent guy. Abraham, even though he lost all those elections, he was probably the best president that America's ever had. He freed the slaves. Well, he began the process. You know, him and Frederick Douglass, they would have had so much oppression. He would have gone through so much loneliness and isolation. In fact, he did suffer with depression. But it was worth it for the cost of through that hope that he had. And Colonel Sanders, I mean, that's just an example I just chucked in there because it's funny. But he, you know, KFC to me is the greatest food that you can ever eat. And he just stuck to his guns. Martin Luther King, another great example. They can kill the dreamer, but they can never kill the dream. That's right. You know, said, and he was a great man that said, I have a dream. And he walked with thousands of blacks in America, and he believed in that hope. He believed that one day black and white people will play together, will walk together. And I mean, you look at that whole speech, it's amazing. And he went in and out of prison, and he was murdered for his dream. What made these guys different? You know, what made Jesus different? What made the Davids and Josephs and the Einsteins different to everybody else? You know, well, let's look at that. If you look at the rest of that, John 12, verse 24, it says that dream, that seed will die alone. But if it dies, there's hope. You know why? Because it brings forth much fruit. And naturally, that is true. A seed has to die, and its roots have to be spread out into the ground before it can become a tree. Now, you look at the example that Jesus shared of the mustard seed. He said that the kingdom is like a mustard seed. A mustard seed, as you can see in this picture, I'll show you, I'll expand it a bit there. As you can see in this picture here, it's a tiny, insignificant seed, which grows into one of the biggest trees in Israel anyway. You know, and it's in that seed that there is hope. But you got to believe it. And that's the thing. That's the hard thing. In Matthew 13, verse 8, there's an example of the seed. It says that still others fell on good soil where it produced a crop in 160 or 30 times when it was sown. Now that's another kingdom parable. I don't really want to get into that too much, but basically what that's about, in a nutshell, is that some will take a hold of that dream and go for it only like 30% of the way. Others will take a stronger hold and go 60%. Others are 100% committed to that dream, man, and they'll go the whole way. And those are the Martin Luther King type people, 100% ready to die for their dream. And that's a cost. Now, Jesus was 100%er, 100% died for his dream. So, just as we wrap up for the last 5 minutes, just to conclude what I was saying here, like I said, I'm going to thresh out this kingdom word a bit more in the next few videos, but we've got 2 points here. One is, if you have a dream, if you have a hope about something that you're wanting to do, something that seems so far away right now, maybe you're wanting to create the biggest business, and you know that that's a fairly futile thing to hope for right now for what we're facing. But that's the reason why you need to hold on to it the most, because out of adversity is birthed amazing things. We're going to see out of this COVID-19 thing, we're going to see a lot of crazy and amazing innovations. We're going to see a lot of people do some amazing things, and things are going to change because there's a lot of adversity. And I mean, that's not something I'm prophesying or anything like that. That's just something that we have seen in history. If you look at the Great Depression, terrible time. But out of the Great Depression, we have seen major growths in industry because they needed to create jobs. And there's many various examples from there, and biblical examples, like I said, all these characters. But it's reliant on you holding on to that hope that you will see fruit for that dream. Now, the other part of this message was that Jesus was a dreamer as well. And like I said at the beginning of the whole message, the dream and the seed that he was trying to share, just like Martin Luther King, when he was sharing that seed of hope and integration, just like Abraham was sharing that seed of hope and freeing the slaves, just like Einstein was trying to become academically qualified with his papers on relativity. Those oppositions that come against those people, created something in them. And Jesus was the same. He was sharing a dream. He had a passion, and that passion was the kingdom. And it only started as a small seed. And he was trying to share that kingdom. Through who? Through his disciples. He shared those truths to them. And more importantly, he developed that seed in them by developing sons in them. Now, when he died, these men carried that hope of the sons of God doctrine in the kingdom and have been spreading it ever since. Obviously, they're gone too, but there have been people that have taken on that seed and carried it further. Now we're in 2020. I've been holding on to that kingdom seed, that hope of Jesus. I've been holding on to that because I want to be one of those fruits. I want to be a tree that is ready to feed the nations. I want to be a tree that is ready to care for others that need it. And most importantly, I want to become a son of God because I want to be more like him instead of myself. We go back to that kind of the death of the seed. That is the death that I'm talking about. Dying to yourself so I can become a better man and have authority in myself as well as others. Now that's the kingdom doctrine. That's a fundamental kind of basic look at it. But Jesus started off 2,000 years ago sharing that seed, and it was seen as being insignificant and a nothing. And there have been times in the kingdom doctrine has been in strong obscurity. But then there are those that have held on to that hope, that light in themselves, walked with it, take it on those that have held on to it for 30-fold, those that have held on to it for 60-fold. But there'll be those that one day will be in the 100-fold company of people that are walking as sons of God. And that's what that's about. Now, I'm going to talk more about that and explain what that means in the next few videos. But I thought I'd leave you with that. Thank you.